Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series, a month-long event celebrating the authors and narrators that bring romance stories to life. Listen along as Viviana, Enchantress of Books, interviews your favorite writers and voices, shares special guest posts, and stay tuned for some special information at the conclusion of the episode.
Hi, everyone. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with guest narrator Rose Dioro. Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Rose. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here.
Thank
Thanks for having
you.
me.
No, thank you. Greatly appreciated. Why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating, and how you got started?
Sure. Well, I've been doing voiceover work since about 2009, and I started in narration, I want to say in 2015. So I've been doing it for a while, but I'm also a theater actor, and that was really like my primary, I sort of was doing both things side by side. But I'm actually just now really starting to focus on narration more full time. So that's a new sort of approach for me.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I think a lot of times the narrators start like, oh, I'll just do this as a side hustle. And then they discover that they really enjoy it. And then also when the funds start coming in, that it could be very about like, oh, I can do this full time.
Sure.
Ooh,
Yeah.
and stay
Definitely
in my
pays better than
PJs.
theater.
Yeah. And like I said, bonus, you can stay in your PJs, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to do that every day?
Oh, if I would have known I could do stuff like that and be a narrator or like a graphic designer for book covers, or hell, even the photographer for the book covers. Gee darn, that's a hard gig, right? I would have totally gone that route, but they didn't say things like that to you. No, they wanted you to be an English teacher or a doctor. When you get cast and you get the book for narration, how do you prep it? What's your prepping process?
Well, I see if there's any notes that the author or the publisher, production company, whoever it is I'm working with, has sent me, like specific things they want me to be thinking about as I read through the script. And then I just start reading. I read through the whole thing, and I take pretty thorough notes. I'm in general in my life, I'm a note taker, and I'm a super detail oriented person, and that definitely filters into my work life. So I have, I read off of an iPad, and I use this app that lets me have a text open, and also on top of that sort of put like note paper, digital note paper. And so I create notes where I break down the chapters and which characters show up in each chapter. And I write, as I'm reading through, I'll mark all of this up. And then I also do character breakdowns for character. I start by doing characters as they show up, but sometimes it turns out, a named character will appear, but you only see them in one scene. So I might delete that or just, not add any notes to it. But I take pretty extensive notes on information I pick up about each character as I read. And as I said, I kind of mark down who shows up where throughout the book. And then I have a section for questions or notes that I want to, like pronunciations that I need to check up on, or questions that I have that come up for the author or the production company, that I want to make sure I don't forget. And yeah, so I mark everything up that way. And then if I'm doing a dual narration, I check in with my co-narrator, and we try to get together on accents and voices and all that kind of stuff, so it's consistent throughout the book.
Have you done a duet narration before, and what does that look like when you have done it?
I haven't done a duet narration. I would really like to. I'm as a theater performer, that the idea of like actually getting to work on scenes with someone else is very exciting to me. And I would love to do that, and I suspect it's in my future, but I haven't had the opportunity yet.
Yeah, when I was looking through your catalog, I'm like, I didn't see anything, but because you guys are constantly recording like stuff that's not going to come out for a couple more months.
Yes. Yeah, I've got a lot of projects going on behind the scenes right now that are not reflected on my Audible page.
Yes. I was going, maybe she'll give a hint. No.
Yeah.
So when you're making these notes for the prep work about the characters, how do you go about selecting how these characters are going to sound, like their tones and things like that?
Well, I try to take as many cues from the script, from the text as I can. authors are so wonderful about writing in physical descriptions and like the kind of clothes people wear and the way their voices, a lot of times you get hints as to what their voices might sound like too. And I get really clear pictures in my head from all of those clues. And when I picture somebody, I don't know, the voice just kind of comes out. It's a hard question to answer. I think sometimes a character will remind me of, another character in a movie or a TV show I've seen, or of a person that I know. And so some of the inspiration could come from those things. But mostly once I've read through everything and I've got all my notes and I start recording, sometimes I'll read out loud while I'm prepping and play with some voices, but mostly I get in the booth, I start recording and see what comes out after having done all that research and prep. And if I like it, I will stick with that and I will make like a MP3 clip of that character voice and put it in a little file on my computer so that I can always reference it. If I don't like it, I'll just keep doing that line until I get a voice that feels right to me. And then I'll do the same. I'll save it and put it in my little file folder on my computer so I can keep track and keep the recording consistent throughout.
Yeah. You mentioned how sometimes you characterize the characters' tones based on people that you might know. Do you ever find yourself kind of going, "Hey, friend, come over here. Can you say this for me?" to see how that word would sound when they say it, and they're going, "No, no, 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 no. You're doing it, aren't you?"
No, I've only done that when there's like a specific accent or even a language. I had to. If I have to record something in a different language that I don't speak, I'll sometimes reach out to a friend and just make sure that my pronunciations are really spot on. Most of the time, though, for voices, it's just a hint of what that person sounds like in my head. It doesn't have to be super accurate, but I do. That being said, I spend a lot of time on YouTube looking for clips of various things as part of my research and prep when I have a sound I'm looking for, especially if it's like from a character in a movie or something. Sometimes I'll look for a clip from that movie and just kind of sit with that sound for a little while. But I don't think I've ever asked a friend to just speak for me or say this line so I can kind of mimic what they're doing. I think that might freak them out.
Well, I know sometimes you guys get asked by your friends that know that you do the voiceover work and that there's accents and stuff. Like I've had the stories shared where they're at a party and they're going, "Hey, you do that voice, and so I'm like, flip the tables on them. You do that voice. I need them for the book."
And I'm a musician too, and so that's come up a lot for me over my lifetime, really, of people wanting me to sing or perform for them in some way. I tend to try to decline because I even as a lifelong performer, I have stage fright. Like as you can tell probably from my descriptions, I am a super thorough person and do lots of preparation and rehearsal for everything that I do. So I tend to not like to perform on the spot, though I've tried to break out of that box a little bit as I've grown into my adulthood. But but with accents too, I'll do that on occasion when someone asks me, but usually the only people that I'll really just like pull out an accent for are my children, who love to like have me say a million things in a bunch of funny voices and different accents and stuff all the time. So I'll always do it for them.
Yeah.
They're the luckiest ones, I guess. Or however you want to look at it. They get what they're asking for anyway.
That's too cute. Speaking of accents, we as listeners are suckers for accents. We love it when you guys get a character and there has to be a either, fill in the blank accent. I think that we love them all. Is there one that you love that's your favorite to perform?
I don't know. I've answered this question a bunch of different ways whenever I've been asked it, because I feel like it changes day to day how I feel about it. But I don't know. Favorite isn't really the right word, I think, because I just love working on accents, period. And that's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I've always been fascinated by the ability to manipulate your voice, like the human's ability to manipulate your voice and sound however you want to sound. I grew up in the South, so Southern accents come really easily to me, like, all Southern accents. And I think because they're very closely related, British accents, the variations of British accents are also very comfortable for me. So those are ones that I could just like do completely without thinking. And I'm always excited when projects come my way that require one of those, because it's just like, oh yeah, this is something I can do for sure. I think the ones I guess ones that are really fun for me are Russian, and like Eastern European Yiddish, like old world accents. I really I really like those. There's not a lot of call for Russian or especially Yiddish accents, but in audiobooks anyway, but I've had a few, and I've done other voiceover work that called for those kinds of accents, and I have a lot of fun with those. But really any opportunity to perform in an accent, I will say yes to, because it's one of my favorite types of work to do.
Yeah. And I was about to say about the fun, if you're kind of like thinking about like when it comes down to the favorite, sometimes it's like, well, they're not favorite. They're like, so which is the most fun? But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, because we all have that. So on the flip side, what's the hardest accent for you to perform?
Well, in the past I maybe would have said Australian, but I just recently did a book that called for an Australian accent, and I have another one coming up in the fall. And I was lucky enough to be working with an Australian colleague, and they helped guide me to make sure that I didn't sound awful on it. And it feels much less scary now. That's one of the ones that my kids are like, they're always asking me to do, because because this is kind of a funny story, actually, a little bit of a tangent. But when I was trying to work on my Australian accent, I was reading books to my kids, and I said, I'm gonna try to do this in Australian accent. It was terrible. That was at the point where I was like, I really could not get it. And so I was reading this book to them in this awful, awful accent that was supposed to be Australian. And they were just cackling. They thought it was so funny, because it sounded ridiculous. And then all of a sudden I found a word. I don't even remember what it was, but I got one word that made it click for me. And then all of a sudden I could do it. I was like, oh, I can speak in an Australian accent. And then I was reading to them this, whatever picture book we were reading, in my Australian accent. I was like, oh yeah, this works. It was like a start anyway. And then I was able to fine tune it a bit more. But so that one used to be really scary for me, and it's less so now. One accent that I have never tried to do, and I don't even know where to begin with, is a New Zealand accent, which is similar to the Australian accent, but definitely not an Australian accent. And I don't know, I've yet to figure out what the nuances are that make them different. So that one's a little hard. And also, I know this is so cliche because everyone says New Zealand and South African. But yeah, both of those are hard for me.
When you're doing yeah, I think it's one of those, you set up when that one work just clicked. I think it's funny how our brains work. It's like it realizes that there was a tongue movement or a tone or something, and it goes, oh, that's how I'm supposed to do it. Got it. Okay. Right. Yeah. When you're doing these accents, do you get stuck on them? Like, do you walk around the house?
Oh my gosh. I spend half the day whispering to myself in like different accents. Anytime I'm like watching something or listening to something and a person has a really distinct sound, I copy them. I will just like repeat what they're saying. I try to make sure no one's around because I look like a lunatic. But I do this all the time. It reminds me of, I don't know if you saw that movie from many years ago now, but In a World. It was about voiceover with oh gosh, I can picture her face, but I can't think of her name right now. She has a really interesting name, I think. She's a famous actor, but she wrote and starred in the movie, and it was all about voiceover. And she was a voiceover actor, and her dad was supposed to be one of like there's like 5 guys that used to do all the promos for every movie. And the character's dad was one of those guys. And so she was kind of competing in this world with her own father. But the point is that she spends a lot of the movie just recording people's accents as she talks to them on this little tape recorder, and then going back home and listening to their voices and repeating what they're saying, trying to perfect the accents. And that's totally me. I loved that movie so much because I saw so much of myself in it.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes when you hear it, it's catchy. And some people have this thing about the accents that they just pick it up real quick.
Mm.
And I have to watch that.
Mhm.
It's one of those like the Texan accents. I have family in Texas. They're born and raised in Connecticut, and they moved when they were younger to
Mhm.
Texas. And so they have this interesting little twang. And if I
Sure.
spend more than 2 days with them, all of a sudden I'm going, Viv, stop. They're gonna think you're
Yeah,
making fun of them. But it's not. It just clicks, Oh, the times that
right.
I go to Savannah, Georgia, there's a little bit of that southern twang that happens there. And I'm going, stop it.
Yeah, it rubs off on you if you spend enough time
Hmm.
in a place where there are really distinct ways of speaking.
Oh gosh, yes. And then like my sister's boyfriend is southern too, and he has these things, and I'm going, if I go back to Orlando with an accent, y'all, and I go, there, I did it, the whole y'all thing, and I'm gonna kick you. But it's fun when it comes down to narrating different styles of books, whether it's dual point of view or solo. Do you have a preference, or do you have one that you like have more fun with? I know you were kind of touching on that a little bit before.
Um, I mean, it's nice when you have a book all to yourself because you can just, make a lot of choices on your own.
Hmm.
But no, I don't think I have a preference. I mean, I like both ways for different reasons. It's nice, it's always wonderful to be able to work with other people in any capacity. This is such I spend so much time alone, all the time alone when I'm working anyway. So it's definitely a nice thing when you have other people on your team. But but I would say you get that in some ways with with something you record, a solo book, because you're still working with your client, you're still working with the publisher, with the author, whoever you're collaborating with. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I like both ways, I
Okay.
guess.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with both. What's your favorite part of narrating romance?
the the fans for sure. Like the community is
Hmm.
amazing and unlike anything I've ever experienced before. Um, And the authors, like, just which I guess falls under the category of community as well. It's just, like,
Hmm.
really a beautiful space to be in, and I feel so lucky to have found myself sort of fallen into it. Yeah, yeah, that's what I like. Mhm.
So romance, tend to say it's an umbrella term with a
Mhm.
bunch of subgenres underneath it, which is where you get the urban fantasy, the rom-coms, contemporary, so on and so forth. Is there a favorite subgenre of romance that you love to perform?
Again, with the favorites, it's so
Sorry.
hard.
Okay,
It's,
well,
like, hard.
more fun to perform. Let's do it that way. What's more fun for you when it comes down to these different subgenres?
I This is gonna sound a little weird. I think I have equal amounts of fun doing rom-com specifically, stuff with a lot of funny moments,
Hmm.
as I do with, like, really dark stories because I'm a super cheery person in general, but for some reason, I've always been drawn to very complicated, dark in terms of act, in my performing life, dark dark stories and dark characters and people who are really working through stuff. So they're both of those are very fun for me, but in different ways. I think there's some catharsis in telling a really dark story and being able to tap into, all of the internal stuff that we all kind of carry with us, even
Hmm.
if it's not specifically the same thing the characters are going through in the book. So there's something really great for me about that. But who wouldn't love to, perform something that makes them laugh? Like and to know that you're making other people laugh is such a joy. So I think both of those things are sort of at the top of my list.
Speaking of the dark romance, I found you through Havoc, which was Deborah
Mhm.
Anastasia's second book in her series that she's doing. Well, they're standalones, but they're part of the same world.
Right.
And that was a character that you portrayed that was different and had its
Mhm.
difficult upbringing, but was kick ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Deborah writes these strong, strong women, and I just love it so much. I love recording books for her, for that, for many reasons, but for that reason especially. Because yeah, her characters often go through these really tumultuous situations, but the women especially tend to be so strong and so interesting. And yeah, especially in that book, for sure.
Yeah, well, that stood out for me. It was that there was that he was a secondary character in the first book, and everybody was like, "Ooh, is he gonna get his own book? Is he gonna get a book?" And we're going, "Yeah, okay, I'm sure, great." And then they do, and then they cast Benjamin Charles, which is how I found him too. And I'm going, "Ooh, I love you."
Yeah.
And then they had this character, and because you try to figure out how is this author going to pair this hard ass man who gives no shits and stuff like that with a woman that's going to make him want to be with her, but also kill for her, but also be all cute lovey-dovey in his own way. And when you get in the earbuds and I'm going, oh hi, you're it, got it, okay. And that also has a lot of flashbacks. So you've had to do a voice where it's a little bit younger, but still keep that hardness based on the character's upbringing, because I don't want to do any spoilers. And stuff like that, but still then change into that older, she's grown up kind of a voice. That must be, from a range perspective, like you plan that stuff out as a planner. I'm sure you do.
Yes, I do. I for sure do. Because those changes are really subtle. It's still the same person. I've done Deborah keeps doing this to me. Actually,
Deborah, are you listening? No,
no, it's actually so fun. And it's another reason why I really enjoy recording her books. It's a fun acting journey to play the same character. And here's the thing, like if I were doing that on stage, I would, we would show some of this through costume and wigs and lighting and makeup. You'd be able to show that age, and also physicality. The way you carry yourself would be different as a 30-year-old versus like a 13-year-old or whatever, that's not the age range of the characters, but just as an example. But when it's just your voice, you got to get a lot more creative, because it's the same person. You can't change the voice. You just have to age it. And it's not like they're turning into like an elderly person. So it's not really aged. It's just a little bit. So how do you demonstrate that, so that it makes sense to the listener? So that's been a really fun challenge in Deborah's books, especially. It's come up in other books too. But I think in almost every book I've recorded for Deborah, that's something that I've had to work through.
Yeah. Plus, there's some authors out there that they love audiobooks, and they write specific for the audiobook itself, as far as less tags, or there's actually some authors that do it and then they have the evil laugh that comes along with it to trip the narrators, because they have such a girl, they're like, oh, I'm gonna fuck with her this time. Or stretch their limits to see how they can do it. And it's also funny too when you see them sometimes on social media with those bantering. But Deborah loved how you perform things, and because I got a chance to talk to her on the podcast a little while ago. I think it was last year, if I'm correct. And I got to meet her too at a conference, and she was so sweet.
Yeah, she's really sweet.
Yeah, and just raving about the audiobooks, because she's a fan too of audiobooks. So it's always love it when the authors are that as well. When it comes down to the genres, is there one that you have yet to narrate in that you're itching for?
I've never, I don't think I've ever done any kind of fantasy, like I don't even know, is fantasy the right word? Like like with dragons or something. I don't know.
Like, it can fit under fantasy or even now paranormal. So
yeah, I guess paranormal, or like something with vampires, or I've never done anything like that. I don't know that I'm looking to. But I don't know. I mean, I guess the truth is that it's all acting, and I don't really, it doesn't really matter to me what the genre is. I know I said, like, if I had to choose, like, I guess the two that I have the most fun with are rom-coms and then like super dark, but it's all acting. So it's all an opportunity to just get to live in somebody else's imagination for a little while. so I don't know. I don't know that
Mhm.
I feel like I'm missing out on anything. I'll take whatever anybody feels they want to hear me
Okay.
in terms of style, I guess.
Do you have a favorite or a fun character type to play? You know, like the girl next door, the kick-ass, assassin for hire?
um, yeah, I think those like really strong, really broken people are what I like to play most because they're just they're most fun as an acting exercise. They bring the strongest or the most filled out backstories with them.
Mhm.
It feels like to me, or that's how it's played out for me. And I really love that. Like you can understand so much about who they are by the just a little bit of information you get right up, at the top of the book usually. And I love, I mean, anytime someone gets to overcome some big obstacle that's been put in their way I like that. I like to play with that.
Yeah. This is
Mhm.
always gonna be fun. Be something that you're not, or be something that you wanna
Mhm.
a little bit more of here and there.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
yeah.
fun. You mentioned that the audiobook community is something that you really enjoy about being a narrator.
Mhm.
What aspects of this audiobook community has surprised you in a good way?
Well, I mean, listeners really rally around authors certainly, but also narrators, and it's just it's just so heartwarming, I guess, to know that people take the time to let you know what your work means to them and how much they enjoyed it, and that's just a really nice thing. And and I love that this that people who are fans of romance have found a way to find each other and get to talk about the books that they love. And I don't know, as a woman, like we we live in a world where you're told like you can't be don't be sexy, but don't be a prude. Don't be, like all these rules that you
Mhm.
have to follow. And I think romance has been a game changer for women, and has given and the community has rallied together in a way that has allowed people who experience these books to feel free to talk about it and enjoy it together, and that they can live all over the world and connect, and that they want to take the time to go to like conventions and events and things, to meet one another and to meet the authors and the narrators and all the people involved. I don't know, it's just unusual. Like I've never experienced something like that before.
Mhm.
And there's something really, really interesting and exciting and lovely about it.
I kind of like this guy because they get it. Like when you talk to a
Mhm.
non-book lover, uh, or one that just reads casually here and there, they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
okay," and then you get animated because you're passionate about it, or you love something and you're just trying to share it, and they just don't get it. But then you get with one of the other people that
Mhm.
is just in like you are, or you guys figure it out and found out that you have the same favorite narrator, and Rose, and you're going, "Oh my god!"
Mhm.
And then it's almost this whole thing just gets extra animated, and we get to discuss books that we love, books that you should listen to. It's a really great community that I
Yeah.
am really happy that we have, and that to be part of, because it's lots of fun. Mhm.
Yeah. And I think it's also, I mean, I may be wrong about this, but it doesn't seem like it exists in other parts of the literary world in this way. I mean, maybe like maybe with specifically with like fantasy and sci-fi, like
Mhm.
those sorts of genres, but just, fiction, like literary fiction, I guess, is more of a solo thing. Like I read this book, I read it by myself, I experience it myself, and like maybe I put on my Goodreads, like I really liked this book or whatever.
Mhm.
But I haven't gotten the sense that there's the same kind of camaraderie and community as there is in romance, in the romance world specifically. Um, and I do think that my assumption is that that comes out of the like almost like we're the misfits or we're the outcasts or we're the people we're like the misunderstood people, who read
Mhm.
romance. And so we're gonna gather together because, like you said, like we get each other, we get it, or we have the same interests, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And also, I mean, years ago it was very taboo.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you read romance in secret, and
Totally.
you grab the book at the library and you sat in the corner by yourself because heaven forbid anybody saw that you were in the romance section.
Right. And I think it just like people realize that, oh, wait, there are other people like me. There are other people reading in secret. And why must we do it in secret? Like, let's be friends.
Yes,
Let's
yeah.
like connect.
Well, there's a meme like that. It's one of those like you see people reading the same type of book or the same genre, and you're going, "Are you? Yes, yours. Oh, okay, we're friends now."
Right.
And stuff like that. But it's definitely aligns with the camaraderie, and a lot of people have this like the Star Trek and the Star Wars and the fantasy and those convention spaces for that kind of like the animes, and they're like, oh yeah, they're the geeks. I'm like, well, some of these geeks are nice and hot, so shut it. Some of these geeks are actually some of the narrators, but anyways, we found a space that we can then hang out with and still do, like, now hopefully going back to doing conventions and getting to hang out with other people of like minds and just literally the equivalent of, instead of playing video games or playing board games, we're just flipping books around in the circle saying, okay, what do you like? Dark romance. Okay, here you go. And what do you do? So it's fun, especially when you guys get to go. Have you been to conventions? Are you planning on going when things get better?
I haven't been to conventions yet. I am planning on it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm allowed to say which one yet, because I think they were waiting to like announce the people
There's a
that
couple
are
of them,
going.
that are out there. So we'll keep an eye out for
but
her.
you will be seeing me soon. I'll just put it that way in person.
Okay, good. Yeah. Or sign up to your newsletter, and I'm sure you'll be announcing it there too. So
absolutely. Yeah, that's the other. Yeah, I always announce everything that I can first in my newsletter before I put it anywhere else.
I love that you have a newsletter.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be able to like, I mean, I'm just amazed that people want to read it.
Well, the way that I tried to tell people and have conversation when they're like, why shouldn't I have a newsletter? I'm like, well, here it is. We're being bombarded by all different angles all around us, 365, by social media, ads and stuff like that. And it's not something that stays stagnant. It's constantly rolling. And when it comes down to like, hey, I think I saw Rose post something about an upcoming appearance, I have to figure out, was it on Facebook, on Instagram, or Twitter? Okay, I think it was on Instagram. Then you got to scroll because now was it a post or was it a story? It was a story. Damn it, it's gone. And when it comes down to then having a website, it's there, appearances. Or newsletter, it just stays in my inbox. There's a lot of that in there, but I know I could just do a search, Rose, and boom, there you are.
Yeah.
And you call us your rosebuds, which is so cute. I'm like, I'm a rosebud.
I couldn't resist. It was so perfect.
Yeah. Well, I have a thing about terms of endearment. I love them. And so those little nicknames and stuff like that, it just makes me, it's again like part of a love language for me. And so I'm a rosebud, yay. And I'm just, it's just, I guess maybe it's just me. I don't know, but I love that stuff. But yeah, so I love the fact that you have that newsletter. So I'll make sure to include the link to it in the post so people can sign up, and that way they'll get to know first before it's announced anywhere else, because those are also the perks of having a newsletter, is when you can share.
and you get a free exclusive audio when you sign up by Deborah Anastasia, written by Deborah Anastasia. Her book, she had a time travel romance that's just really, it's so different than the books that we've been talking about of hers so far, but it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful story. And I recorded 40 minutes of that, like a little 40-minute snippet of that you receive when you sign up for the emails. And that book was never made into audio. So this is like the only way you can hear some of it. So that's a fun little gift that I wanted to give to people who sign up to get the emails.
That's awesome. Yep. So again, I'll be including that link because I know that everybody's like curious about time travel. I mean, hello, Outlander. And of course you narrating it and also Deborah writing it. So it'll be fun to have that. So if you guys have not subscribed and become a rosebud, you have to. It's fun. When you're not working in that little spare time, what do you do for fun?
I love gardening. and just being outside, pretty much doing
Mhm.
anything outside, biking, hiking, gardening. Yeah, just sitting in a park. I don't know. I love to be outside, especially spending so much time indoors, whether it's on stage or not right now, but in theaters or in my booth. It's good to be outside.
Mhm. When you're not narrating it, do you read romance outside of work?
The truth is I don't have any time to read anything outside of work. I know every narrator says that, but I'm always either in the midst of recording something or prepping something or both at the same time.
Mhm.
So I rarely have any time to read anything. To be honest, I'd never read a romance novel before recording them. I was already recording other types of books, so I was already sort of inundated with that, and scripts, because I work in new works in theater. So I'm always reading new scripts and working on new scripts too. I'm always reading something. But I hadn't really experienced romance until one project came my way. But now I really enjoy it, and I love that I get to read it every day. So yeah, that was a happy accident.
That's good. If you could have any animal as a pet, so not just domestic animals, I'm talking about like zebras if you wanted one, what would it be and why?
And we're assuming that like I could fit this thing in my
Oh,
house or whatever.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
there's no limitations. I think I've had to like
Okay.
preference that. Just if you could just have one, regardless of house sizes or whatever, you know.
I think I'd want a giraffe.
Mm.
They're just so intriguing. Like I just could stare at a giraffe all day. They're so interesting to look
Mhm.
at, and they're just massive, which I don't know, it just boggles my mind how big they are. And they seem so gentle and sweet.
Yep.
So I think that's what I want. Plus, they could help me reach really tall things. So I could get things off of the highest shelves.
Yeah.
Or like off the roof or whatever.
Yeah, they'll probably look at you saying, not quite what we meant. Yeah, they are very majestic and amazing how that works for them because body and length of the neck is just amazing, and they're so
Yeah.
gentle.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good
They're
one.
they're just fascinating.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you could live anywhere in the world, no worrying about money or anything that's going on right now, where would it be?
Live there, like full time live there. Hmm. I don't know. I went on my honeymoon to the Pacific Northwest, and we went to, I think it's called Granby Island in Vancouver in Canada. And it had like a little artist enclave there that I always thought seemed really fun. I don't even know if that's still what it is. I don't know, but um I could totally see myself living there. I don't know. I tend to be happy wherever. Like I'm a pretty easy to please person. My husband and I used to talk about this all the time. Anytime we'd travel anywhere, when that was a thing that people did, we would always like say, "Oh, we could live." We both would be in agreement that, "Oh, we could live here. Oh, we could live here." I could kind of I can make anything work. I lived in Italy for a while, and I loved that. I love Napoli and Naples. Like, is a really, really special place to me. So I would live there. I don't know. I really I really could be happy. I could be happy anywhere.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was thinking, that you would probably be you would be good in like Italy between the gardening and the outside and just a
Yeah.
bit more of the relax. And look, you already lived there. See?
Yeah. I didn't live in Naples. I lived in
Right.
northern Italy and
Yeah.
Milan, which are very, very different places.
Yeah.
But I think if I were to live in Italy again, I'd want to live, on the coastline, and I'd live in southern Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it there.
Mm-hmm.
And I made some really wonderful friendships in southern Italy when I was traveling around there, that I think just really colored the whole experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have very, very fond memories of that time. So I would live there.
Okay. Cool. So like I said, when you were saying that, I'm going, she would really fit in Italy. If you could be any Disney character, which one would you be?
Moana. I love Moana.
Hmm.
And I think again, because she lives outside and she like
But she was
gets to
also
be on the
very,
water.
yeah, but she was also very gutsy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's those strong women again.
Yeah.
She she is my favorite. She's my favorite
Mm.
Disney character to date. And I think I've seen nearly all of them. I was a big Disney, like the animated movies that they made every year. I was a huge fan growing up. And actually that's what got me into voiceover. I always had this dream of being, playing a Disney princess. But mainly because I'm a singer and I loved the idea that I would get to act and sing in a movie, and something about it just being my voice was really exciting to me. I think again because I've always had like super terrible stage fright, which I've learned to navigate, as I said, as I've gotten older and even when I was a kid. But I liked the idea that I could do all these things that I loved without anyone having to see me or look at me. So I always wanted to be a Disney princess. And when I learned that not because I wanted to be a princess, but only because of the singing and acting and being a cartoon thing.
Yeah. But it isn't until recently that the main characters were not a princess.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. And I think yeah, exactly. And Moana was the first one that I don't know if I think I identified with, like, I never really identified with most of those characters. I just liked the concept, but in her, I mean, I was an adult, obviously, when that movie came out, but it was the first time that I was like, oh, this is like a person I could really get behind. Like, I like this. I like this person a lot. I like this character and I like how strong she is. So yeah, I would choose Moana.
Nice. Yeah, I think when people ask me about my favorites, the three that I always come up with are not really princess. Well, they're technically the way that you look at it, but that's part of the conversation that sometimes we have, is that until recently everything was the damsel in distress,
right?
I think like Belle was maybe the first one that didn't really have a lot of distress because she took ownership of it, but then people flipped that around into something else. But yeah, so we have, Moana and Mulan. I think that was another one too that was not a princess originally, but
yeah, I think that's one of the only ones I haven't seen. I think it's just like the timing of it coming out. It was before I had kids, but it was after I was already like a grown up, I think, or like, too old to be, so I missed it. I should watch that.
Oh,
but
yeah, now you have kids and you can use them as an excuse for a lot of different things. Just
yeah. I mean, hey, I don't need an excuse. I would just watch it myself. I just don't have time to watch anything. But I think that's one of the few that I'm in. That and same thing with the Frog Prince. I forget what they actually called it.
The Princess and the Frog.
Princess and the Frog. Yeah.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, the timing of that coming out, I kind of missed it, though I really want to watch that one. And I've tried to get my kids to watch it, but they're like really sensitive. Both of them are really sensitive to conflict. They basically can only watch Winnie the Pooh. Like they can't make it. They can't make it through most things. And one of my kids is 8. Like they can't do it yet. So I'll be like, oh yes, I finally get to see this movie. And then 5 minutes and they make us turn it off. So I haven't gotten
cute. I love it. Yeah, I have a friend that has 2 little girls and they're still into like Snow White and Cinderella. I'm like, when are you gonna put Brave on? And he's like, they're not ready for Brave. I'm like, come on, it has cute teddy bears. Brave's one of my favorites. So yeah, I can see where that whole part of the age, but also sometimes that sensitivity to certain concepts is
like too much action, or I think for kids, like action plays out as suspense because it moves around too much and they don't know what's going to happen. And something about that feels really scary. At least for my kids.
No, and some kids are extra sensitive to stuff like that. Yeah, it's one of those where in someone's, I mean, I had some friends with kids that you can literally watch Halloween Horror Nights, for an example, and they were like, and they would go straight to bed right afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Not a nightmare, nothing, nothing. And then otherwise you just said something that's, darkness, and they're like, no. So
that's not my kids. We're not watching any scary Halloween.
No, exactly. So everybody's different, which is always fun when you're trying to figure out what to watch and figure out what's going on. It's like, I cannot wait. This is why a lot of parents have TVs in their own rooms for this exact same reason, so they don't have to worry about it. But yeah, growing up, again, I love the kids, but only so much you can take sometimes too.
Yeah, especially right now when they're around all the time. Yeah, I just got a new booth
I saw. Did you finally name her?
I did. It's Betty Booth, and my husband surprised me with some decal, like vinyl lettering.
I was gonna suggest that.
It says Betty Booth on it now. I'm very excited. We're just fixing up the room that we have it in. We're completely changing the room now that the booth is in here, and it's so beautiful. We're like, oh, we have to make this room look different. So we're painting the whole thing and moving all the furniture around. So when it's also, and I'm moving my whole office into the same room where the booth is, because it wouldn't fit in my actual office. So we're making that. We're just changing stuff around. But when the whole thing is set up, I'm gonna do a live video tour of the whole thing. So you'll get to see the Betty Booth label. But I was going to say, I got this studio bricks, which is very popular with all the stay-at-home voice actors right now. But one of the things I was so excited about is that I now have an isolated mostly soundproof room that I can just go in and not have to listen to anyone asking me a gajillion questions and asking me to make them something and yelling in my face. And oh my God, it's just like, I can have some silence. This is amazing.
Yep. And they have to get through at least 2 doors, the room door and then your door. So yeah.
That's right. I need that separation.
I know. Yeah. I have just the one door and mine is 18 and he still pops in. So I'm thinking, I'm like, I know I'm not a narrator, but maybe I was looking at the different booths that they had. And they have some that are bigger. And I'm going, could I validate this for the podcast?
I mean, you can make an office space, like a silent office space in one for sure. If they were bigger, mine's very small, but there's all kinds of purposes for a quiet room.
Go in there, shut the door and yell. No, but that is great. I know that I had seen that you posted about it and then you were doing the naming thing. I was like, oh, I hope she does that one with the Betty Booth one. Is so cute. And then I thought about that decal. I'm like, oh, we should make her decals. I'm glad your husband thought of that.
Yeah, it was so sweet.
Husband wins.
I was so surprised. Yeah. This has been, I said I started voiceover in 2009. So this has been like, what is that? 12 years in the making. It was a big day when the booth arrived. It's very exciting.
It's those little things.
Dreaming of this day. I don't have to exclusively record when everyone's asleep or, really unpleasant times of day. I can do whatever I want. It's very good.
Yeah. It's almost like a rite of passage. You start off like, hey, I'm going to be a narrator. You make the decision and then you're like, okay, where am I going to record? Ooh, closet.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you start improving and things like that. It's almost like when you decide, I mean, beforehand, you guys could go to the studios, but even then, sometimes it was one of those, again, working from home is always easier. But when you get that booth, you guys have definitely have had fun with that. And I love seeing you guys get all giddy about it. It's cute. I love it. It's just fun stuff. Speaking of fun, and I know that a lot of us do this and some people don't care. Some people do care and some will just belt it out. You as a singer, this will be a good question. What song do you have to sing along with when you hear it, regardless of where you're at?
Bohemian Rhapsody. Anything by Queen, really.
Yeah. That's a good song.
Yeah.
Do you do all the different parts?
Oh yeah. For sure. That or Bobby McGee, Janis Joplin's version.
Yeah.
That's another one. Yeah. That's what I would say. That was the quickest decision I made in any of the questions.
I know. Well, sometimes we have it and it's one of those where, people will be like, oh, I don't know. It depends if and they don't have a favorite one, but then they hear it, they sing it, or it just becomes, and I think it's hilarious when you're in the grocery store or at a store and they bust out this rare song that you haven't heard since like the 90s. And then the next thing right afterwards, it's the station saying classical music. And you're going, no.
Yeah. Oldies.
I'm going, no.
Yeah. That's getting really, that hurts my soul these days. It's getting bad.
Yeah. But it's also fun too, because it's one of those, sometimes I see them in the pushing the carts and there's a music and I'm, just humming along. Cause public. But then you go down the aisle and you see someone not giving 3 flying fucks, and they're belting it out and they're dancing and going, I like you.
That might be me. You may have seen me in the grocery store.
Yeah. But I would have joined along. So if it was you, you know. So they'll, you know, bust out, like my husband likes to play that game where it's like a groovy song and he goes, ooh, it's making me move. Look at that. And I'm going, okay, honey, no. But that Bohemian Rhapsody is a really good song. And I can totally picture you doing that whole entire thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to be a good visual now.
I feel like I'm going to get myself into trouble at like some convention or something. Someone's going to hold me to it and start playing.
Oh, you know what? Well, okay, I have it all planned with people. If you're listening to this and we're going to a convention where Rose is going to be at, just start, like, when we see her and we found where she's at, just start singing along. Start it and see if she starts and continues it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another one is Chain of Fools, Aretha Franklin song.
Yeah.
That's another one that I really love to sing at the top of my lungs.
Yeah. It'll be fun. Oh, see, we already have things planned out and we don't know when it's going to happen, but we have plans. Plans are fun. What is your favorite word?
Favorite word?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have a favorite word.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is kind of sad for somebody who spends so much time talking.
Well, maybe you haven't found it yet. That's how I like to see it, that you haven't found it yet because it hasn't come across you yet. But do you have a favorite curse word?
This is going to sound super, super lame, but I actually don't really curse in my life. I do a lot in books.
I was going to say.
A lot. And it's not that I'm opposed to it. It's just not a way that I express myself. I don't know why. It's just never been a part of my life. I truly don't know why. Like my dad had a really foul mouth, and so does my sister. It's not like I didn't grow up with that in my life. I just actually, now that I say it, I think I do know why. It was probably a rebellion against my family.
Probably.
I just wanting to be the opposite of everything. I was like, they do this, well, I'm going to do the opposite. Maybe that's why. So I don't really have a favorite curse word because I don't really say them.
You substitute, you know, like I know that people will do the whole baloney for bullshit.
No,
not even that?
I say crap a lot.
Okay.
Every once in a while, if something really, mostly it's in the car. Hopefully, when my 3-year-old is not there. But I like if I get road rage a little bit when people do stupid stuff driving, and I'll, you know, like say damn or shit or whatever, but I like other than that, I don't like, when I'm with other people, I never find myself expressing myself that way. I don't know why. I know it's really lame.
It's not lame. I find it rather intriguing and interesting. I also asked about the different words is because there was this one author who wrote a story and the series was based on different holidays. So the Christmas one, it was about an elf, was a heroine, and she didn't curse, but she's things like fudgesicle sticks and peppermint mint, you know, stuff like that. That for a while there, I just started using because they were fun. And then fast forward, kids, and you know, you're trying to be what people classify as a good parent, and so not doing any curse words. And oh my God, that was stressful. Yeah, like, you can only use baloney for so many things, you know, or fudge. Yeah. And I'm the girl that grew up similar in a sense, like I did not use foul words or, you know, curse words or however people want to just say them growing up, because that's not how the household was. Right. And having parents from different countries was always fun, because when he would say a bad word, Dad, it, you know, to him, it wasn't a bad word, but to my mom, again, different country, it was. And vice versa. So I'm like, I think I'm just not going to say anything.
I had the same thing actually. My dad was not born in the United States, and so there were all sorts of curse words, both in English and like several other languages that would come out all the time. But I didn't ever do any of that.
That's good. Yeah.
You know what? I think actually I do have a favorite word, but it's not in English.
Okay.
It's in Yiddish. I don't actually even say this word. I don't ever use this word, but I just really like it. geschmackt is a word that I really like, which is like, I think it means, if I'm remembering correctly, like really wonderful, like really delicious, like perfect. I don't think there's a real translation
It's a
in
pretty
English,
word.
but I really like that word.
It's pretty. I like it.
um,
See, sometimes you can. It's interesting too that a lot of people automatically think when I ask that question, it's been like, oh, English, and they're like, no, I said word. It doesn't have to be in English, because we have different dialogues and people have traveled, and we learn different words, and so that's a pretty one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's I think that's one that I really like. But again, I don't think I've ever actually used that word in my life. I just really like the sound of it.
Yeah.
Geschmack.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I like it. So we've reached the point of our game section for our chat today. So we have this game where we play with our guests called Two Truths and a Lie, where we ask you to tell us 3 things about yourselves. And and I like to say we because I like to pretend that the listeners are playing along with me. I really do hope that they are. So I always ask that they make their guesses in the comments to see which one, if they were right or not. But we try to guess which one's the lie, and then kind of go from there. So if you're ready.
I'm ready. I think
Okay.
we'll see. I tried, this may be very hard, but here we go. Okay. My first and only tennis lesson was from a world #1 tennis player, Arthur Ashe, or the world #1 tennis player, Arthur Ashe. Number 2 is I went to my husband's birthday party while in labor with my first child at a bar. And number 3 is my mother's first cousin is Martha Stewart.
Wow. This is why I give them this as homework to allow it to them get as creative as possible. And then I remember, fuck.
I spent some time thinking about this.
All right. So got lessons from famous tennis player. Labor, going to your husband's birthday party at a bar, or your mother's first cousin is Martha Stewart. Oh boy. Oh my goodness. All could be possible. But at the same time, I want to say that you would not go into labor at a bar without knowing it. So is that the lie?
That is not a lie.
Oh,
it's true. There's a whole story behind it, but yes, that is true. I was at a bar in labor for my husband's birthday for a party we had planned. And I was already in labor when I went.
Oh my God, woman. Was this your first child or the second?
This was my first child.
Oh my goodness.
So the story is that I had been in labor for a really long time. I was in labor with my first child for like a week, just early labor. And we had planned my husband's birthday, obviously, and my child's birthday are like very close together. It turns out they ended up being 2 days apart. And I said to my husband, like, we had planned this party. This is the last time you're ever going to have a birthday party because your birthday is the same time as your kids. It's always going to be about your kid. So we're having a birthday party for you. But then I was in labor and it just never stopped and never progressed and it just continued. And I had to have a cesarean with my first child because they were
stubborn.
Well, yes, very stubborn and continue to be stubborn to this day. But also the way they were positioned, they were not going to be coming out. So I think that's part of why the labor never progressed because the kid was just not moving.
It's like, nope.
Yeah. But so I had been in labor for all this time. I was like, there's no difference here. Like I'm having, like nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. I've been experiencing this for a week. We just have to live our lives. So,
oh my God.
so I was at the bar while in early labor. It was crazy.
Oh my goodness. And that's the other reason too why I asked if it was the first or the second, because again, we tend to, anytime we do something for the first time, we freak out. We're a bit more precautionary. We're like, oh my God. And the second one, you're going, it's okay. I still got a couple of hours, but yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay. So that is true. So now we have either Martha Stewart is your mom's first cousin or the tennis. Wow. Okay. Tennis is a lie?
That's true.
Oh my goodness. So I was thinking like Martha Stewart being like thrown in there has to be the truth to some extent. But yeah.
I know.
Because that was
That's
so
true.
random,
Yeah,
I
I
mean, and
know.
she's going really all out on the whole pregnancy at the labor thing at the bar. So that has to not be okay, girl. You got me.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew it would be hard, but yeah, the tennis lesson is crazy. I've never, first of all, I should say, I used to be a dancer, so I suppose that was my sport, but I'm not a sports player of any kind.
Hmm.
Um, especially tennis. I know nothing about tennis. I don't understand anything about tennis. I've never really played tennis in any fashion. I had one tennis lesson in my whole life, and it was because we were at a conference for my parents' work in Florida, actually, when I was really little. I don't know, I must have been somewhere between 6 and 8 years old or something. And I have no idea the circumstances of this. I'll have to ask my mom. But for some reason, Arthur Ashe, who I don't know if you know who Arthur Ashe is, I actually didn't know who Arthur Ashe was. And he was an incredibly famous tennis player, was at this place where we were staying for this conference and was offering tennis lessons. I don't know. I don't know why, but my parents were like, we have to sign you up for this tennis lesson because this guy's super famous. So I had a tennis lesson with Arthur Ashe. And the funny part of this story is that my husband was referenced Arthur Ashe sometime, like a few years ago. And I was like, oh, I know that name. And he's like, yeah, he's like one of the world's most famous tennis players. And I said, no, I think I've met him before. I'm pretty sure I had a tennis lesson with him. And he was like, no. You did not have a tennis lesson with this world champion or world number one tennis player. And I said, no, I really think I did. And he asked my mom, I had remembered correctly. I had a tennis lesson with Arthur Ashe, and my husband. I think it's my favorite. I think it's my husband's favorite thing about me, like his favorite story about me, because it's so absurd.
Not
And
the
of course,
labor one. Wow. Okay.
yeah, it was like completely wasted on me to have this tennis lesson with this super famous tennis player.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, both of those things are absurd things to have happened, but they're both true.
Okay. So Martha Stewart is not related. Good. Got it.
Yeah, I would love to. Well, I don't know. I would be interested to meet Martha Stewart anyway, but I'm not related to her.
Okay. Well, these were really fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the prompt, because it was really funny to kind of come up with them and think about what I would say.
Yeah. But I find it fascinating because, we don't get to know you guys a whole lot except for like maybe accent work and things like that. And then what you guys do share. And I think it's just a fun way to get to know each other, from you guys better rather. And but also to figure out how good of a liar you can. Not just kidding. I told that to one, to figure out how good of a liar. And he's like, we are actors, most of us are actors. And I'm going, yeah, whatever. So yeah. So thank you. Those were fun.
Good.
Oh my goodness, that labor one's gonna stick with me for a while.
Sorry, I feel like I've scarred you at that
No.
story.
It's just one of those fascinating because again, I've had friends that had been through it and the variety of what could happen as soon as that labor thing starts. It could take anything, like you were saying, from days to hours to weeks. And some of them, if it's a second child, sometimes it could be, oh, okay, I'm done. And the kid comes out and then it's like, wow. So men's powers. I'm like, she went to a freaking bar.
Yeah,
I love that.
For my second one, I was in labor for 15 hours.
Oh my God.
And most of that was active labor. I had like really long active labor.
Ugh.
Yeah. So two very different experiences, both crazy.
And also it's going to be fun when they get older.
To complain to them about what they did to me.
Not only, I always say you could always ground them now for things like that, but just to have those conversations. Like, I know when I was talking to my parents and my grandmother, and they would tell us stories about stuff that they did while we were in the, around or coming out, like that pregnancy story. The idea that, mom was in labor with me at a bar to celebrate my dad's last birthday because we're going to ruin it, so it's all these fun things that the kids are going to be having lots of fun when they get older. So before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you that you can share?
Yeah, there's a couple things I can share. I think some of it I probably can't yet. Right now, or I just finished recording a book for Deborah Anastasia, actually, with Podium Audio. It is the follow-up to Drowning in Stars, called Stealing the Stars. So Drowning in Stars was a book I did. I think it came out this past January. And Stealing the Stars is focus on one of the characters, one of the sort of minor characters in that book. It's a really lovely, I guess you'd call that a duet, right? Like just two, like a series that's just two books.
Yeah.
And it's in this one, I actually don't change ages throughout, but or I do a little bit, but nothing that really required me to change my voice at all in that way. But it's another, like, I think there's like I don't know what this genre is. I saw the name for it the other day, but like it's teens, like it's not a YA, but it's like a teen romance. And there was a like emerging adult or something
Oh
like
my
that.
God, they did not bust out with that title. Now.
I don't think that's what it's called. I'm not calling it the right thing.
Because we have YA and we have new adults.
Yeah, and it's something in between those. It's because I guess what it is they don't want to categorize it as YA because there's actually sex in it. But it's also not new adult because they're not adults, they're still teens. So I forget what the name of it is.
Look that up then.
I hadn't heard the term before.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up
but
that
that's
term.
But that's what this book is. The main characters are like 18, or one of them is 18 and the other is, I think, 17, approaching 18. So that I just finished recording. I'm not sure when that comes out, but probably the next few months. This month I have, I think, 3 books that are being released. One I just saw went up on Audible. I didn't know that I could talk about it yet, but since it's on Audible, I will. I did a couple novellas for Helena Hunting for her Clipped Wings series, which I had recorded a book in many years ago at this point, maybe like 3 years ago. So that's with Jason Clark and me, called Cracks in the Armor. And that comes out on the 15th of June. Before that, on I think June 10th, is a Rena Kent book called Red Thorns.
Yep.
And then in early July, is the follow-up to that called Black Thorns. And those were recorded with Teddy Hamilton and Jacob Morgan. So 3 this month. I'm now working on, I'm not sure if I can say what this is, but I'll just say I'm working on a series right now that I'll be recording back to back. It's like 4 books plus a novella or something like that. I have no idea when that one's coming out. Probably not till winter. And then what else? Oh, I'm just like, there's a lot coming up. I wish I could talk about more of it. One thing I can talk about, I don't have any details, but I'll be recording my first book for Lauren Blakely in the end of July. I'll be recording that one. So I'm super excited about that because I love that Lauren writes with narrators in mind and writes for audio specifically. I think that'll be really fun, and it kind of changes the way the writing is, and Lauren's just super, super sweet. So I'm excited to work with her. And that covers a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. There's more, but yeah, if you sign up for my mailing list, you'll always be the first to know. As I am allowed to talk about stuff, I always put it there. It's community.rosedioro.com/rosebuds. And I'm working on a website, a more robust website besides that little landing page, that I'm hoping to release this month for Audiobook Month.
Yeah.
So there'll be lots of samples on there and other fun stuff, and I'll be sure to have releases and stuff listed on there too.
Nice. Cool. Make sure to share it once it's up and running. Awesome.
That'll be just rosedioro.com, but it's not ready yet.
Yeah. It's amazing. It takes a lot of stuff, and people are like, it's easy. Well, it's not that difficult to create a website, but when you want it right and you want
Mhm.
specific stuff in, especially when you start adding audio clips, oh, it gets a little more headache.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I've built a few websites for different projects and
Mm-hmm.
things. Something I like to do, but it's very time consuming. And pretty much every time I've done it, in the middle of it, I'm like, why? Why am I doing this? Why didn't I hire somebody to do this? What's wrong with me? But then I'm always so proud of myself at the end when it looks the way I wanted to, and I did it all by myself.
Yes, yes. I totally understand that concept.
Yeah,
Still learning about, hiring out for things.
yeah, yeah.
But something I tell my clients all the time, things that you don't like to do, things that you prefer to do, other things, hire people out. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's another conversation for another story at a bar with drinks. No, I'm just
Right.
kidding.
Well, in labor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, not in labor. Well, thank you, Rose, for being part of this year's Audiobook Loving Series. Greatly appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Mhm.
It's fun.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you for hanging out with us today. And we hope you've enjoyed this interview as well as the series. And until next time, happy listenings.
The Audiobook Lovin podcast has special Patreon incentives. Join today to receive early access to podcast episodes, exclusive content with our guests, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. Thank you for your support. Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Series, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. We hope you have enjoyed this episode as well as the series. We've included audio samples of our guests' work within the post for you to check out. Please make sure to visit the main page, link within the post, to learn more about the series, the authors, and the narrators. Please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to this series if you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana, Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you've enjoyed this program.